Hi guys, greetings from Bulgaria. I'm Anton, and in today's video we will talk about how to automate Shadowdom with Selenium WebDriver. So the topics that we will cover are what is the Shadowdom, why we need it, how to use it. We'll discuss the creation of custom web components. This is actually why we need Shadowdom. I will show you some real-world examples of how to build such custom web components more close to the reality. We'll review a couple of options, and then we're going to automate these forms using Selenium WebDriver. Additionally, we're going to discuss the native HTML5 components like the video player or data picker that they also use Shadowdom. But you'll see that they use another mode that it's called closed, which means that we cannot interact directly with their internals, like the buttons and everything inside them. However, we'll discuss some options, what we have in our tests, how to automate them. I'm Anton. Probably you know me from many of the videos on the LambdaTest channel. You can check some of my videos regarding Selenium 4, JUnit, XUnit, or probably you read some of my books. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do so, check the ring bell. You'll get notified when there is a new video on the channel. Also, there are many awesome articles on the LambdaTest blog. There is also one regarding Shadowdom. So check the links below, and also you will find links to the GitHub repo with the full source code linked below. So let's get started. First, what is the Shadowdom? In order to answer that, I will directly show you one cool article. It's part of the MDN web docs. This is the Mozilla web docs. They have really nice articles about the Shadowdom and custom web components. I suggest you to check them. But let's discuss first what is the Shadowdom. Shadowdom is connected to the process of creating your own custom web components, like the video player, like this video player, right? And these web components, like the video player, we need them so that we don't repeat the whole markup every time. But not only. For every web component, the encapsulation is vital. We keep the component styles and the JavaScript code and logic in a separate place. We have the option to hide the internals, as we discussed, by marking the Shadowdom mode to close. And as we will discuss in the video, you cannot interact with such closed Shadowdoms with the JavaScript or in the WebDriver tests. And the Shadowdom API is key part of this, providing a way to attach a hidden separate DOM to an element, like here, right? Note that the Shadowdom is not a new thing by any means. Browsers have used it for a long time to encapsulate the inner structure of an element. Think of this video tag right here. Think of this video tag. By the way, in order to see the Shadowdom right here, you need one special option enabled in your Chrome Developer Tools. You need to click Settings here, and then you need to mark here Show User Agent Shadowdom. And then after that, you can see the internals here, right here, right? These are the internals, the buttons and everything inside the Shadowdom. And this is our video tag. As I said, some of the native elements of the HTML5, they actually use Shadowdom and custom web components. So, as you will see in the DOM, you see the video tag, but it only contains series of buttons, right, and other controls inside its Shadowdom. And this is the way how we can wrap it, how we can reuse it. And this is part of these custom web elements. Another example is this data picker here. Again, we use it as an input, right? We use here input date, and we have some attributes to set some parameters of this HTML element. However, when we we can see the internals by expanding the Shadowroot, and maybe we need to clarify some DOM terminology here to be aware. We call shadow host, this is the regular DOM node that the shadow DOM is attached to, right? This is the input date. And then we have the shadow root, this is the root node of the shadow tree. And you can affect the nodes in the shadow DOM in exactly the same way as non-shadow nodes. For example, appending children or setting attributes, styling individual nodes, like using element.style something, or adding style to the entire shadow DOM tree inside the style element, as you'll see in a minute. The difference is that none of the code inside the shadow DOM can affect anything outside of it, allowing for handy encapsulation. And also, this way, we can reuse the HTML markup instead of copy-pasting it on different web pages. And if we need to change something, update something inside this particular form, we can do it in one place, or we can style it in one place. So, as I said, I built some real-world examples. I used Bootstrap. Probably you have heard of it. It's a popular technology for front-end development, for bringing styles and JavaScripts and you know, some validations and reuse some code. It's really nice. So I use Bootstrap to create such sign-up form. We use such sign-up forms when you need to, for example, get leads for subscribing to a webinar or for a particular event. Many often public websites use such forms for their webinars. So I created 3 modifications of this form. For example, one for our Christmas party or Christmas webinar, another for New Year's webinar, and this is the default one. So in the first implementation, I implemented it without shadow DOMs or custom web components. So let's check the source code. I use here Visual Studio Code but you can use IntelliJ, that's completely fine. I use it as well. But in order to show you the HTML, I will use Visual Studio Code. So in this index.html, this is the regular sign-up form that I showed you. It's just a default markup, right? In the head, we have all of the necessary JavaScript and CSS and fonts and everything regarding the Bootstrap to style the form and make it work. And then we have just divs, and we have a form, labels, input fields, that's all, right? However, when we want to additionally, when we want to add additional styles to the form, like the colors and bringing this form of the buttons and everything, I use this custom CSS file, index.css, and I linked it here in the head, right? But again, if we want to reuse this form, when it's just HTML tags, then this means that basically you need to copy paste and paste it into the other file, which is a bad practice. And now I'm going to teach you how we can use custom web components to do so. And here is the form. As I said, if we inspect it, as you can see, it's just a regular DOM, nothing special, no shadow DOMs here. But let's see now how we can create this form here. As you can see, the things that we want to be able to customize from page to page is the title, is the name of the button, it is the color, whether it's red or purple or green, and also we want to change these links here, terms of use and privacy policy. In order to do so, again, you can check the MDN docs. They're really nice. Here I created this custom form. Again, it's in the head, it's referencing most of the same JavaScript and CSS. The only difference is this script here, that it's actually the implementation of our custom form, the sign-up form, this component. In a minute, I'm going to show you this JavaScript. But for now, let's just focus on these two lines. I created a new unique tag for reusing the form. Basically, we created a unique HTML web tag. And if we inspect this unique HTML tag, you will notice that actually the actual implementation of this form, the whole form, is this HTML web tag. Let's inspect it. As you can see, if we close the Shadowroot, you will see that we have this unique HTML web tag called unique signup form. This is a random name that I picked, and the customizations that I wanted to bring, we actually set them through our custom HTML attributes, like the button name, the terms, the link to the terms, the policy, the title, and then all of the internals are actually part of this Shadowroot, the Shadowdom. Here, as you can see, we have the same form, but actually I moved it inside this Shadowdom, and actually the custom styles for the form are inside this style HTML tag. And we also can link other style sheets as well using the link tag. That's fine. So let's see how this works. There is a second way that you can do it without HTML tags, but we can use the native mechanism for providing information to these custom web components through SWOT attribute, but just in a moment I'm going to explain how this works. So the main logic, as I said, is placed inside this signup form component JavaScript file. Let's open it. So we have JavaScript class with a name that I picked. I named it unique signup form element. It extends the default HTML element. Actually, you can, there are actually two types of custom elements. They're like this one, standalone custom elements. They didn't inherit from standard HTML elements like the HTML input, but this is basically just a custom web element. However, you can customize built-in elements when you inherit their basic HTML elements, like the HTML input or the checkbox, whatever. To create one of these, you have to specify which element they extend, as implied here. But however, as we said, for now we will stick to the first type, which is a standalone custom element. We have a constructor where we need to call the superconstructor of the base HTML element. And then with this line, attach Shadowdom mode open. Please note that we say that it's open. This means that later, when we want to automate this page, we will be able to interact with the internals, with this internal structure, because we said that the mode is open. However, when it's closed, let's see what happens. If we return to the video player, if we try to play with it, and if we try to reference it here we reference the video player, right? This is the video player. But if we try to access the Shadowroot, well, here you will see that it's no. We cannot interact with it because the video player is actually closed. Later on, we will return to this example and I will explain how we can automate it. For example, play the video, pause the video, or make it full screen. But let's now return to explaining how this works. So we here attached the Shadowdom. If you attach the Shadowroot to a custom element with mode closed, you won't be able to access the Shadowdom from outside. By the way, if you try in WebDriver later, you will receive no such Shadowroot exception. Now, we have here a lifecycle method. First, the constructor is, when we create the element, we call the constructor. Then this connected callback is actually it's called when this custom tag element gets inserted into the DOM. And this is the place where through JavaScript we get these custom attributes that we define: the title, the terms, the policy, the button name, and the color. So we initialize them here. And there are two more things that we do. We initialize here as a string. As you can see here, I'm using this special JavaScript string interpolation. This means that we can provide SWOTs inside the string, like here, where I set my custom color that we set here from the attribute. So basically we initialize the same CSS as before, like we had in the index CSS. However, we modified the color in a few places, that's all. We use the CSS as a string, right, in the variable. Then when we have the Shadowroot, we can access actually the Shadowdom via the Shadowroot. So with this Shadowroot, we can actually initialize the inner HTML. This is the way we add it. As you can see here, we initialize the inner HTML. I basically copy pasted the whole markup from the index HTML, with the only difference again that we use string interpolation with this special quotes. And here with this $, curly brackets, I can access my variables that we initialize from the attributes. And we're going here to change the title. Also below, I'm going to change the button name, the terms of use, and the privacy policy. That's all. And that's all. That's all of it. Basically, I set the inner HTML as a string. When this is initialized in the DOM, this will be called and it will be inserted. And the only thing left is to add to this custom element registry. Basically, this is a JavaScript object that provides information about all of the custom web elements that are registered to the DOM. So I defined that we're going from now on use this tag, unique signup form tag. And when it's provided into our web page, it will initialize this unique signup form class. That's all of it. Later, as we saw here, I can use them. Also, if we look, this is another implementation of the same thing, right? This is the second page that I showed you with for the New Year webinar, right? I just changed here the button name. Let's see the difference. Here the name is participate, the color is, in this case here is red, here is Christmas, and for New Year's form HTML, I just change the button name, the terms views, the title, and the color. That's all. And we have reuse the whole markup, the styles and everything, but we modify the whole form and we reuse it, which is awesome. So as I said, there is a second native way how you can provide information to your custom web components. This is called SWOT. If we return to MDN, this is again the perfect place to search. There is an article called Using Templates and SWOTs. In a minute, I'm going to explain what are the templates. But let's search for SWOT. Here is the flexibility of SWOT. Actually, the SWOT is a custom HTML. Is an HTML tag that you can use inside your custom web component. And later on, when you use your custom web component, like here, my paragraph, you just need to provide the name of the SWOT. And basically, this span, it will be placed directly, it will be replaced, it will replace the SWOT. And this is another technique for providing custom information. I think the thing with the attributes, it requires additional JavaScript code, but it's more flexible because you can set, as you saw, the attributes. At least from my perspective, it's much shorter as well, because as you can see here, we need to repeat, for example, some of the class names in order to be styled properly. We need to provide the swap names. It's much longer compared to this thing here. But it's good to know that you have this alternative. And lastly, the third option is to use templates. What are the templates? Again, you can read on the MDN, but actually the templates actually are declared in the head. And we use this special HTML tag called template with an ID. The whole thing about the templates is that when you have to reuse the same markup structure repeatedly on a web page, it makes sense to use some kind of a template rather repeating the same structure over and over again. And this was possible before, but it made it a lot easier by using this tag, the template, which is well supported in modern web browsers. And this element and its content is actually not rendered in the DOM, but it can be still, you can still use it in the JavaScript. And actually this is exactly what we are going to do. Just the thing is that basically you provide in the head the template here with the ID. I moved all of the styles directly here. As you can see now, the HTML is real HTML, it's not string inside the JavaScript. This is one benefit of it. You have the coloring and everything. Just in order to be able to set these custom parameters like the title, the headline, the button name, the links, I provided additional ID to my web elements. This is the only change that I needed to do. After that, the body is the same, right? We have the unique sign-up tag. That's all. And let's see the template JavaScript. As you can see, it's much shorter. Again, we reference the same way we're getting the attributes. However, the big difference here is that we need to get by ID the template. We use .content to get its content basically as a string. We create and attach the Shadowdom and get the Shadowroot. And after that, as a regular DOM, we can append child, you can call it append child, and then we can clone, basically we're cloning the whole template node inside the Shadowroot. Basically we're copying the content. And as I said and as I explained, in order to customize this template, because now we cannot use string interpolation, I'm getting my elements that I need to modify. I get the headline, I set the text content by getting the attribute above, and I'm changing the anchors of my privacy policy terms of use. And in order to bring the custom colors, I just created a separate additional styles using the special JavaScript class called CSS style sheet, and it contains a method replace sync where I can provide a string the CSS. And later to add these CSS styles to the Shadowroot, we have these adopted style sheets. And again, later we the same way register the HTML web tag. Why you need to know all of this? Of course, probably you won't write all of these custom web components yourself. This is work for the front-end developers, but we are engineers, and as engineers, we need to understand how this works. And it's really useful when you can open the DevTools and when you find this code and when you read it to understand what's going on. And especially important to understand how this works, because sometimes when you need to, for example, automate these components, maybe you have to discuss this with the front-end developers part of your team. And now let's discuss how we can automate all of this. Now I created a regular Java project. Here is my IntelliJ. In the POM XML, I initialize everything needed. I use the latest version of Java. We use JUnit, the default Maven dependencies here. If you're not familiar how to use JUnit and configure this, check the LambdaTest videos about it, and also the videos about Selenium. I installed WebDriver Manager and the latest version of Selenium, and we have one test class. I use here JUnit, and the basic thing is that before all of the tests, we're initializing the Chrome driver using the WebDriver Manager, and before each test, we're starting the browser. We maximized it, and that's basically all. Now, since we are using and referencing local files, because I haven't hosted it somewhere on the server, but they're inside my resource folder, we use special syntax called basically the name of the class that get resources, and then using the special Java class paths get, I can, with this line, I'm getting the full path on my file system, and then I can navigate directly to it, right? And now let's see how we can automate first the not Shadowroot form like this. It's just a regular form, right? We have, not this one. If it's the regular form, not the input, but basically we need to find this input here, and basically we're going to type the username here, the email address, the password, the confirm password, then we'll check this checkbox and then press the sign up button. That's our test. And let's type it. Now, let me show you how we can find all of the elements. First, we find the heading by the tag name h2, and then I'm finding the rest of the elements using most of them XPath. I'm saying, please find me the input where the name attribute is equal to username, email, password, confirm password, checkbox, and here for the button, for the sign up button, we find it by the button attribute. If we want to assert some stuff, for example, the title, we call the assertion assert equals, and here I'm checking the title by getting the text. If I want to check the color of my sign up button, I can use the get CSS value, method. And I call the CSS property background color. Remember that when you check them in the markup, they're actually in hex, but here you need to provide RGBA. This is how WebDriver returns them. And then I'm checking basically the text of my get text button. That's all. And when we need to perform the actions, I'm basically just using same keys to type all of the information and clicking the buttons. Nothing special here. Now, when we work with this another form, with the Christmas form, please note that now is the same form, but when we scroll up, it's actually part of the Shadowdom. And if you try directly to interact with these elements, you will receive element not found exception. And we need somehow to be able to reference the Shadowdom. So let's see how we can do that. If we return to our tests, first we'll actually work with the form about new year. If we try just to copy paste these locators, we'll discuss in a minute why this won't work. But here are two ways how we can reference the shadow host. Remember that if you use Selenium 4 or above, we have a special method called getShadowRoot. And actually, as we said, the shadow host is the node that the shadow DOM is attached to, and this is our unique signup form tag. So this is why I'm referencing by tag name. Or if you have ID, you can reference it by ID or whatever. And then when we have this element, we need to call get shadow root. Second option, if you use older version of Selenium WebDriver, you can use driver execute script. Since as you know, in Selenium we can execute JavaScript, so you can use return argument 0 from the shadow host, and you can call this property shadow root. If you remember from the video player example, I showed you that in the JavaScript this is how we referencing the shadow root, and this will return the shadow root element. You just remember that we need to cast the web element. And from now on, when you need to search for the components, you can use directly, basically we can copy paste the whole code here, but instead of driver, we'll search inside the shadow root. And this way, we'll find the elements inside our shadow DOM. However, if we execute this test, you will notice that you will receive an exception that none of this is working. And one thing to be aware of is that instead of using XPath and tags and whatever, when you interact with the Shadowdom, you need to use CSS selectors only. So here I rewrote all of the locators using CSS selectors. As you notice, they're just slight difference. For example, from the XPath, I removed the 2 slashes, and here we don't have the @ Besides that, everything's almost the same. But yeah, this is one thing to remember. If you use XPath, this won't work. And besides that, everything else works fine. Just remember that in order this to work, the get shadow DOM, get shadow root, your shadow DOM should be in, if you return here, the mode should be set to open. If you try and if you set this to close, WebDriver test won't work. And for the other test, for the Christmas form, as we discussed before, actually just the information is different and the assertions, but the rest of the code is similar. This is the same code. We have the get shadow root, and here just the text is different, right? The things that we assert. This is the perfect place how you can basically wrap this inside page objects. Check out the LambdaTest channel. There is awesome videos about page object pattern depending on the framework and language that you use. So we can wrap all this logic inside POM, inside a page object. And now let's discuss one more thing. It's related to nested shadow root tests. I actually going to show you one more example. Is this form here, where I created actually nested shadow root. As you can see here, we have 2 elements, and we actually have first shadow DOM with this shadow host, and then we have this nested shadow host where inside we have this input root. And note that when you read the HTML, when it says shadow root open, this is mode is open, you can interact with it. But when you see here user agent, this means that the shadow DOM is closed. And how we can work with this, with nested shadow DOM, it's pretty easy actually. We just again navigate to the page, we reference the first shadow host, the first shadow DOM element, we get the shadow root, and then we search for its content here. We check it, and then when you need to find the second shadow root, we actually here search inside the same in the first shadow root, we search for the second, and then as with the first, we can use the find elements. It's basically we are chaining all of them. Is this easy? You can download the source code and you can play with it and you can debug it. As far for the video player, actually here, as you can see, I'm navigating to the video player page. I'm executing some JavaScript and waiting for the page to load completely. And actually, if you want to work with the video player, you will notice, and if you check the official documentation of the video player, you will notice that actually we have methods like if we press play, this will play the video. We have the pause. We can pause the video. Also, if you set, for example, if you set the current time getter, this will increase and change the time, as you can see here. Also, we can increase the volume or decrease it like this. As you can see here, we decrease it, right? Or you can even request full screen. So basically, through JavaScript, you can automate such of these closed web components. And this is exactly what I did here. And I'm going to show you how you can use JavaScript sometimes to automate such web components. Let me show you. Again, the same way we reference the Shadowroot, you can use the same JavaScript here. This won't work. If you try to get the Shadowroot, this will fail with no such Shadowroot exception. This will be null. This is why, if you want to automate such controls and if they have public JavaScript methods, you can reference them. This will play the video, this will pause the video, this will request the full screen. You just need to reference the element first. And also for the current time, I actually have two parameters, the video player, which is argument 0, and argument 1 is actually the volume, is the current time, and here is the volume. That's all. Pretty easy stuff, right? So, thank you for watching. In this video we discuss how we can, what is the Shadowdom, how we can create such web components, custom web components in different ways, and how we can automate such tests even when the Shadowdom is closed. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Also, check the GitHub repo, and of course, check the LambdaTest blog. It's awesome. There are many awesome articles that are released each week, and there is one regarding Shadowdom. And don't forget to get your free certification from LambdaTest certification, and wait for another videos. Bye.